All right, welcome everybody to the distribution demo for March 23rd, 2023. What we're going to look at today is in relation to a proposal to replace the use of the busybox image itself with the GitLab base image. Effectively, all we really use busybox for is specifically doing some init container patterns, which almost always consist of just copying files around. There are some more complex items that we have to care about, and there are upstream charts that we may or may not be able to just drop in like that, but at least we can look at ours. So here's the issue that we've got in front of us is, can we just take the busybox latest that we currently have in Mirror and outright replace it with the GitLab base image? Now, this is made a while ago, shortly after the GitLab base was put in place. First, we needed to make sure that the GitLab base image was actually produced and tagged on the same one, that it was included into the final images listing so that we knew about it and tracked it, that we had it included with metrics, and that it was actually a part of the sync images, aka part of the release process itself. All of these things are now in place, and we know that it's also included as part of the container scanning behaviors. And we can confirm that we do indeed publish those images as a part of the sync images process. That part is actually super easy because we can just do Scopio inspect, just read that, GitLab.com, GitLab, or build CNG, GitLab base be 15.10.0. If I get a result, I have a published version file that matches, and surprise, I do get a result. So we are indeed publishing this along with everything else. So that much is good. Now, the next item we have here is, we have to make sure that release tools is updating whatever that image is so that we're following the same thing. However, recently, we've made it so that the helper images also follow the same tag on the CNG. So, for example, the kube control image that's used by a couple of the jobs, now instead of having its own version and tag and then having to use SHA digests, instead uses the same tag as the rest of the CNG, which is based on the Rails tag. And now we can just automatically roll that as we do with release tools through the setting of global GitLab version. And then the step after that is to replace busybox with GitLab base for all of the charts. Clearly, this would be kind of one at a time. Start with one, see what's there, see the complexities that we have to deal with. And then, of course, we can throw a deprecation item into a release and saying, hey, we're no longer using busybox. This is one less thing you have to worry about pulling from who knows where. And it actually helps to concrete one less thing for some of those parties that we have consuming our images that want to, one, have fewer origins, and two, be able to make use of all GitLab originated and guaranteed versions of things. It's not that we don't know and trust the busybox images, it's that we can't produce the same level of attestation for that we can for our base images. So a rightful thing was that Hussein mentioned at the time of the issue is that we have to be careful about switching things over. Now, the concern is that we have these set config scripts that are built into GitLab base so that we don't have to have them into every single image. If you're running them through Docker, you replace that through the entry point. When we turn around and do the exact same thing as a part of the GitLab charts, all we really need to do is make sure that we're setting command for whatever that is so that we can override that entry point behavior. Because most of the time, we legitimately just need to run a whole bunch of walk this directory, copy this file from here to there. And only really in the registry chart itself do we have to worry about the complexities of the init pattern that's present there. So let's take a quick look and see how many things actually have busybox. Oops, I just need templates and charts. Yeah, that's a few, but not too many. Obviously, we already have the global busybox settings that we use and then consume through everything else. So if I pull up that helper, look at line 500. This is another one of those. We could use cleaning this file up just to make it a little more maintainable. $550. So here we are. Now, what we basically do here is construct what the image is from busybox itself. Nothing horribly complicated, but effectively we just have a means of pulling in what the busybox repository is and then having the localized version for init or whatever else, and then coalescing that into a name and tag, right? Standard pattern effectively. Now, this did not previously take into account tag suffix because we weren't actually tagging our own busybox images. To replace this outright, we probably want to basically clone busybox image, because as we do this portions at a time, we won't necessarily want to clearly replace every instance at once. So we could roll this from GitLab busybox image to GitLab base image as we go along. And effectively what we have here is you have the busybox pattern, and then you have the kube control pattern. And we would essentially do this, but instead of having kube control, it would be GitLab base. Now, since this is effectively that simple, kube control just does that and then passes on the value of which image it's supposed to be. We basically stick our nose right in here, and super simple. So in theory, I could just copy, paste, and I would almost be able to just take that out, except will be the question of, do we have kube control? Do we use knit? Do we what? Right? That'll be a particular choice down the road. But for now, I'm going to just make this somewhat easy on myself and just kind of cheat there. So how do we determine when we put this together what the repository is? We have repository, tag, colon %s tag, and tag suffix. So really, we just take image repository itself. So if I look at values, you see kube control has image repository, and that essentially has the name in it, right? And if I look at the same thing for certificates, there's that. So if I do the same image repository, same thing. So effectively, as long as we were to set the busybox image repository to the correct or newer name, it would essentially just drop itself right in. The complexity, like I said, is how is that then used as a part of the various deployments? The ones that we're going to care about most, I already know about. So I'm going to look at code, charts, registry, templates deployments. So we have certificates. That's a separate container. Also, I'd love to tell this UI to stop telling me everything it doesn't like about YAML. There. It's a little less easy to read, but less squiggly lines. There's certificates container, and here's the dependencies container. And there's the configure container, which consumes busybox. And the command for that is sh and then configure for the registry itself. So that one's already using command and passes its necessary arguments all at once. Now let's go check the same thing, but in a slightly more simplistic choice. Now this one has configure, and the command is already specified as sh. So then we have -c, and then it performs what we tell it to do according to its scripting patterns. So the immediate concern that was raised and was accurate from Hussein, that we make sure that we get around the set config pattern by making use of the command behavior, appears for at least almost every instance of a init container. We seem to already have the setting of command. So I'm going to make something simple here and do greptech rn. I need to use double quotes to make this happy for an easy search. Did I miss something? Yes, I missed quotes. So there it is in web service, and there it is in log cursor. So at least those two have that right. So then let me actually just search for name configure and say after 3. Okay, so every instance of name configure that has that, and that's on the migration. So that's there. Gitaly has configure sh, got an sh. This one's a little different because of the line item behaviors. Looks like we wanted to make it easier for us to identify specifically what was going to fire through arguments for that one, because we have to do something slightly different. Hey, opportunity to dry a little bit here. Okay, we've got it set up for the web service. We've got the exporter covers itself there. Prefect is built the same way. Toolbox is built the same way. The jobs from it are, there's that. MinIO, we do this. And then we have, now mind you, this is our fork of MinIO. If future looking, we do switch to a different MinIO provider chart, obviously this will change some things, but we have to look and make sure that we can get the same scripting patterns in place for it. Then we're looking at the registry. We already know that we have that. And even their necessary jobs. So on first look, it looks like we really don't have to worry about ensuring command is in place, because it seems to be in place for all charts. So let's take the simplest possible, let's see what happens route, and just set the busybox image repository to, instead of being based on busybox, to be based upon GitLab base. And of course, set a tag that's going to actually, exist, because unlike busybox, we do not tag latest, and we have not tagged latest for quite some time on purpose. Feel free to ask if anybody ever wants to know why we don't tag latest. Summary is, don't do that. That's really bad practice in true implementation as production deployments. And that's why we stopped. So I'm going to do, I don't have a build directory, so I'm going to do vim, I don't even need vim code base.yml global busybox image repository, and this is going to be registry.gitlab.com. Change that from there to GitLab base, tag to master, because we don't have the ability to just consume the GitLab version yet. There's no changes made whatsoever. I'm going to very much just add these to my normal settings and deploy. We'll see what happens. And add S into my cluster, and I'm going to do helm install GitLab.f. And then I want this. Oh, right. How? Oops. I'm in review and forgot to actually run my helm dep update. Let's try that again. So far, everything seems to be making it past its configure scripts without any issues. So the init containers seem to be firing, seem to be behaving, and having no issues whatsoever. Unsurprisingly, we're seeing web service and Sidekick in paused init states. I say paused init because if I were to go look at what's actually going on, we're currently in the dependencies init container, and it's waiting for the database to be fully initialized. Cass is in a crash loop back off. Let's look at that quick. I think that container needs updated to the latest version of Cass that includes this function. Okay, I'm seeing shell is up and happy. That's never a good sign. My test license has expired. Whoops. Okay. Did it finish populating? Apparently so. I mean, dependencies fired, so I guess my database is up. It's just mad at me because my license is expired. I gotta fix that. Okay. So everything seems to have come up without any issues. And there's configure having fired with GitLab base without really any problems at all. So at least from that standpoint, it really was as simple as setting a tag and changing the image. Now, to be fair, I also don't have absolutely everything turned on. And I didn't necessarily look at any of our other charts that we depend on that may or may not have busybox. To be fair, those are the primary ones that we're going to care about are Redis and PostgreSQL. Both of these, as a particular instances, those customers that care most about the attestation for each of these images should not be running these in production anyways. It's not that we don't say that they're impossible to run in production. It's we don't provide them as dependencies of this chart to be production instances. We don't test them as production instances because we give guidance that depending on your load, we can't predict it in a reliable fashion. So these stateful sets are better to be operated outside of that cluster or by a larger and more resilient installation that is not included as a part of our chart. I don't have Grafana turned on. I don't have Prometheus turned on. So I can look at one of those in a production CI deployment to see what it uses. But all of our charts actually fire up without an issue. The only one I need to look at is charts, GitLab pages. Nope, it's got it too. We're good. Now, so the question that I want to toss out there, now that we know that it'll stand up with almost no fuss, and the recent changes show that everything should just work. Because we can base off of the work from, where's my window? There you are. We can base off the existing work that we did to change the other helper images over. What's the benefit? Right, the issue talks to it a little bit, but like, let me explain this to everybody else that may not be exactly familiar. There are multiple ways in which a given Kubernetes can be configured to pull images. If you happen to make use of GKE as an example, and you're using a managed cluster versus GCP and then deploying a cluster onto it through kubespray or something like this, GKE by default serializes all image pulls. So even though busybox is very small, it's one more image that you have to pull. By us relying on GitLab base and using the shell functions that we need for that, what we effectively do is remove yet one more image. That doesn't seem like much. And in reality, it's not really that much. But it's one less pull through the system and one less thing in the stack. And because that image shares all of its base layers, literally being GitLab base, with every operational image for all of the various service containers, Thus, if we pull that to do the init containers, everything that comes after it actually goes faster because we've pulled everything. We don't have to make more API calls. And when it goes to pull the next image, because every image on the node that is a GitLab image will share that as a base image, every single pull actually gets faster. So we're talking saving maybe a few seconds as a general rule on any given pod. But when we take that into account of at scale and just one less external dependency, because we already need this behavior anyways, then we get operational uptake and performance because of that. Any questions from anybody? I'm hearing crickets.
Sounds
DJ?
like that's it.
Yep.
Thanks for
All right.
the demo, Jason.
Yep. This is relatively simple and straightforward work with a little bit of care. We can make it happen super quickly and it will benefit everybody. So thanks everybody for watching and listening. And if you're interested, feel free to take a poke. We shall see you around.
Bye.